so much for tuning in to Modern Day Vet. I'm Marie, where we transition from veterans to civilian sector. We're just going to go with the flow today. I'm just excited to have a fellow vet. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself. You guys, if you guys see me looking up, it's because the screen is up there, but the camera's here. So I'm trying to look between him and the screen. We're not going to have an intro this week because I keep fucking up, and that's fine. Whatever. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce yourself and a little bit of history and background.
Sounds good, Marie. Thank you so much for having me. And your excitement. No, I appreciate that. It leaves me a little speechless as well too. Let's see. My name is Fonseca, and I joined the Navy on July 12th of 1999. And lo and behold, 22 years later, I stood up at that podium and thanked my family and great leaders for getting me there. After 22 years, because that's not what I ever thought would ever happen in my life, or what my life would come to fruition. Um, Joining back in 1999, I was a high school dropout at that time, just running with the wrong crowd, and I knew I just had to get out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is my hometown. And so shortly after my 18th birthday, I ran over to the Marine Corps recruiter's office because as a high school dropout, I figured the Marines could use, someone not well educated to soak up some bullets. But I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. So when I got there, growing up as an Army brat, all I knew about was medics. So I told the Marine Corps recruiter I wanted to be a Marine medic, and quickly found out that they didn't have any. And he gave me a whole bunch of pamphlets to look over and come back like in the next day or 2 days later to discuss what career path I wanted to take in the Marine Corps. Well, on my way out, there was a Navy recruiter that asked me, "Hey, what that Marine offer you?" And I basically told him the background, and he told me, he goes, "If I can get you to go be a corpsman," I believe he said a corpsman at that time, with the Marines, would you sign up right now? And I never knew what a hospital corpsman was or anything. And uh, I think gratefully, so being naive at that time too was, I was like, okay, let me just hear this guy out, see how a Navy sailor can get me with the Marines. And I'm sure at that moment is when he pulled up the computer and showed me what a hospital corpsman was, and it was the first time I ever heard about what a hospital corpsman was. And yeah, so I signed the paperwork that day, and because I was a high school dropout, although I was a senior, they put me in the delayed entry program because my recruiter was trying to get me to get my GED before I left for boot camp. But in my mindset, I was like, I already got a boot camp date, man. Like, I'm not gonna go waste time in high school. And so yeah, so that's how I ended up in the Navy. And as cliche as it sounds, September 11th, and then going into Iraq in 2003 is what kept me in for so many years, for multiple reasons. But definitely the major reason was for the first time in Marie, you've known me for quite a long time. I'm not a braggadocious person. I'm not egotistical. I don't believe I am. Anyways, I found something I was good at. I truly did. I as crazy as that sounds, I never excelled in school. I didn't excel in sports. I'm not a sports person. I think that's why I geared more towards running. As you know me, I'm a big long time advocate as a runner, long
Yes, I
distance
went to your
runner.
marathon.
Right. I remember that day you had me the water. So yeah. And so, I finally found something that I was good at. And as time progressed and more conflicts were going on and I kept redeploying and picking up rank, then I was starting to invest my skill set in young men and women like yourself to get y'all prepared to whatever came at y'all, whether it was on the battlefield or it was here at home fighting injustice or fighting for each other, right? And and yeah, that's what kept me in for 22 years, even after all that I went through, and starting from the very beginning, as you know, in 2003 when we went into the invasion of Iraq, I was a young HA, I've been busted down. That's why I was an E2.
Mhm.
When we got sent into Iraq and in the Battle of Al Nasiriyah, which infamously got nicknamed Ambush Alley later on, where I ended up losing 18 of my brothers. And on that day is what got me awarded the Navy Cross for my actions on that day. And that was, yeah, a blessing and a curse, as
Mhm.
you could think of it. Someone that wasn't raised, and no knock on my parents, but being immigrant parents, life wasn't harder for me than it was for them, right?
Yeah.
My dad was very much in scholastics. So if it wasn't straight A's, and when I mean straight A's, like if it wasn't like 97s or 98s, he'd be like, "Oh, you got a 95? Why couldn't you get a 97?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So his way of motivating me didn't motivate me. It just deterred me from wanting to try because it just felt no much how much I tried, it was never going to be good enough. And yeah, and so the Navy Cross situation kind of put me in that place where it was like, the negative talk, right? Um,
Mhm.
uh, and say, no, I'm not deserving of this. I'm not deserving of this. And then I have young junior sailors or even leadership say, "No, Fonseca, you're this great dude." And so like a double edge, and carried on that throughout my whole career. And I think that was another reason why I tried to deploy so many times, because also in my mindset it was like, I have to show the Navy and all these sailors that I truly earned this award. You know what I mean? Like I'm truly uh uh worthy of wearing the award I um that I attest is for all my brothers that didn't come home that day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that was a little bit longer of an intro than you probably wanted, but like I said,
No,
yeah,
that
after
was
22.
awesome. No, that was awesome. I can listen to you for days. No, that was people definitely, without a doubt, look up to you, and you definitely, definitely deserve that award. Whether you think you do or not, you without a doubt deserve that award. So always keep that in
Thank
mind. And
you.
there's a lot of people that honor you and speak to you. And I was speaking to a few of my friends, and they were like, "No, you're interviewing him." I was like, "Yes, I'm going to interview him. I'm so excited." But no, we definitely have similar upbringings. I have Spanish parents. I don't have a little Joe Navy story of why I joined. I was kind of a fuck up in high school too. And my dad was like, listen, you got to figure out what the fuck you want to do. But yeah, thank you for that story for the Navy Cross and your parents and stuff. We definitely have a lot of similarities. Now, when you got out, how would you say your transition was between getting out of the service after 22 years, which was like your whole adult life, after 22 years, and hitting civilian world? Was it like a kind of a hit in the chest, like a culture shock? How did it work out for you? Like, were you depressed the first few years? How did it go?
So yeah, I retired on June 30th of 2021. So yeah, just a couple of days shy of 22 years. But my transition, honestly, Marie, and I like to use me and my wife as an example, and because we had a dual retirement ceremony, so we both
Mm-hmm.
retired same time, got piped ashore at the same time, and my wife's retirement and my retirement were two totally opposite ends of each other. I think, because I did have great leaders throughout my career, as my career was going up and down just due to my inability to speak up about my mental health and me using negative coping mechanisms to try to combat that, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I kind of always knew was that uniform was going to come off for good. That you know, HM1 Fonseca, HM2 Fonseca, Navy Cross HM Fonseca one day will no longer exist. But Luis Fonseca will always exist until the day I die. And I had great leaders that always kind of reiterated that in me, and reminded me of that, especially as I became a first class, and a lot of the chiefs, senior chiefs and master chiefs were kind of preparing me and the mess for me to become a chief, right? Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And it is what it is. I'm very proud of my service regardless. Um, but yeah, when I retired, the last 4 or 5 years, Marie, were really just so fulfilling. And the reason being is on July 18th of 20, no, July 8th of 2018, after 17 years of drinking myself stupid, using misusing my medications from my psych doctors, and yes, even have used illicit drugs on active duty to combat my inner demons, I decided that that day I wasn't going to suffer anymore. And
Mhm.
I pulled out my Glock 21, put it to the side of my head, and pulled the trigger. And my Glock stovepipe, which means the round basically got stuck in the barrel. And I still have it to this day. um, and that day, everything changed because it, it it was true. That day, my suffering ended. And fortunately, it didn't end by the trigger and the bullet, but it ended by me finally just saying, Luis, yeah, you have one or two options, man. Like, you can keep going down this road, and your kids and all your junior sailors, or everyone that you wanted to make proud of you is going to say, man, yeah, he was a good dude, man, but sucks that we lost him to drugs, alcohol, and suicide, man. I would much
Mhm.
rather my kids live with me. Hopefully our great creator, me being a Buddhist, our great creator gives me life until, 80, 90 years old, 100 years old. My kids can stand around and say, yeah, dad suffered a lot when he was younger, but man, look at the great man that we're putting in the ground today. And I just fight every day for that eulogy, for that narrative now. And so, yeah, so once I got back to work on that Monday, was already put in place. My wife was taking me to Fleeing Family Services, or putting me in the SAIL program, which is a suicide for any sailor that actively had a suicide attempt. They put me in
Mhm.
the SAIL program, which I selected to use instead of going to the Naval Medical Center at Balboa. And the reason is at that time I was using illegal drugs to cover up some shit, and
Yeah.
I knew that as soon as I went into like the North or whatever, they do blood sampling, right? And one of them,
Mhm.
part of that panel, is a drug panel. So I was very fortunate that my chief listened to me, and he didn't know about the drug use. But I was like, look, chief, I've done the whole hospital thing. These Navy doctors, I just can't get it out of my head that they haven't seen combat. So how the fuck they going to help me and treat me? Let me just go to a civilian. And so that's how I just on Fleet Family Services, which saved my career. And so yeah, so once I went into that treatment and came back from that treatment, I stood up there that morning, and well, let me rewind a little bit. When I came back from that treatment, I walked into Chief's office. I was like, "Hey, Chief, I'm back at the command. What do you need me to do? He's like, well, right now we got formation going on. Get out there with your crew, HM1. It's already HM1. And second time. and, and so I was like, set. I was like, bet, Chief. So I walk out there, and I used to go stand in formation with my other
Mhm.
HM1s. And I could already see that people were like, what the hell is Fonseca doing?
What is
But
he
I
doing
just figured,
back?
like, yeah, but I figured, I was like, hey, it's just because I'm coming back. And they're like, damn, this dude's still alive. but, but no, Chief's like, look at he's like, hey, get up here. And I'm like, what's up, Chief? He's like, what are you doing, dude? I'm like, I'm standing in formation. I'm gonna get in here with my sailor. He goes, no, dumbass, you're the LPO. And I was like, whoa, whoa. And but Chief, like, I just had a suicide attempt. You just found out about all my drinking. I went to, I'm just getting back from therapy. He goes, I was like, are you sure I'm good enough to be a leader? It's fucking
Mhm.
absolutely, Fonz. He goes, don't ever question that. He goes, you just been suffering, man, and it's just, we're just glad that you're still here, man. But I need you to lead your sailors, man. I was like, all right, Chief. And he goes, look, Fonz, he goes, if you're worried about what your sailors think, he goes, all your sailors know is that you've been gone taking care of a family emergency. They don't know anything of the situation. He goes, that's on you. And it was that moment that it was like the light switch, that it was like, yeah, he's right. Either I keep lying to everyone, eventually going to eat that bullet. I stand up and say, hey guys, this is who I am. Love me or hate me, but I'm gonna speak my truth in order for me to survive. And so my last 4 years are really just spent me working on myself, me as open as you already knew that I was Marie with certain
Hmm.
things like that. I mean, just even so much more open to the fact that, junior sailors would come up to my door. H1, do you have a couple minutes? I need to talk to you. And some of the stuff some junior sailors have told me, should I have been the last man holding the secret? Absolutely not by instruction, but I'm glad that I did because those are so very successful sailors that wouldn't be in the Navy today if someone would
Hmm.
have been like, nope, policy, that's it. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
understood what they were coming from. I understood the pain that they were just trying to cover up. And I understood that I could help a little bit and maybe helping a junior sailor, a peer, or even a leader heal, to heal, to they don't necessarily have to be open and speaking about it, but to maybe speak to their families or their spouse, to a religious confidant person, right? A member of the church or temple or whatever you choose. Um, but if I could affect that, then I wanted to do that. And that's where I just started the last 4 years really just preaching that and living it as well, and not being double-sided, not having two faces. I always felt I was an imposter. I had two faces, two sides of Fonseca, of Luis Fonseca. But anywho, I felt like I was finally living my truth, and I am now, So the last 4 years were so gratifying, so satisfying, because that was really my role. Yes, was I running a clinic? Was I running, others say, yeah, for sure. But it just felt right to me to speak to my sailors, to finally, you know, even though I've always spoken up to my sailors for chiefs in front of chiefs, like, hey, that's not how we do business. Like, I felt even more empowered now, especially when it came to the mental health, where sometimes even when I was dealing with my mental health and the chief was like, oh, fuck this, Fonseca, you know what it's like. You just got to suck it up sometimes. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but this isn't the time for that. Like, we need to take a time out. We're on
Yeah.
shore duty. But in my mind, it's like, I was thinking that, but my mouth said, Roger that, chief. What the fuck, guys? Blah, blah, blah. Like, this isn't hard. This isn't combat. And so
Yeah.
now the last 4 years, like, nah, like, you're fucked up, dude. Like, fire me. I don't give a shit, like, but this isn't the way I run business. And if you want me as your LPO, we're gonna have to change some shit around.
Hmm.
And so anywho, it was really fulfilling and gratifying. So when I retired, it was a smooth transition for myself. I was so ready to retire at 18 months. I submitted my retirement package. Like, at the earliest
Awesome.
you could submit everything, I had
Yes.
everything submitted. So, um, and also, and it worked out in my benefit too, because when it came down to, like, I think I was 2 weeks away from terminal, then all of a sudden, oh, Fonseca, where's this? And where's this? I was like, I submitted all of this. And luckily, I kept photocopies of
Yep.
everything. And every time I signature, whatever, I kept a copy of it. And boom. So my transition, as far as like rolling over and retiring and getting my benefits, was pretty smooth as it can be during COVID. My
Hmm.
retirement personally was very liberating. It was very freeing. It was very much my mental health needed it as much as I enjoyed being an HM1 and wish I would have made chief and led more sailors. When you met me, my plan was to be a force master chief one day, or a mech pawn. And sometimes I look back and say, man, I wish that would have came to fruition for sure. But I'm so grateful where I am now.
Yeah.
And it's all because it was fun. I transitioned out. I got out of the military, and one of the best things I've ever heard people tell me that have known me for a long time and have seen those stages of my mental health, when they look at me and say, Luis, man, you just genuinely look happy now, bro. And I'm like, thanks, thanks. Because I feel happy. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
don't get me
good.
wrong. Every day shit gets thrown at you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just now, whatever, dude. Like, I have so much bigger things to worry about, like, our 8,000 plus veterans, and that's all the only ones that are reported. We believe it's double, but 8,000 plus veterans a year that commit suicide. So we
Yes.
have over 200,000 veterans living homeless on the streets. So the other shit that gets thrown at me nowadays is little shit compared to what we're trying to do, like
Yes.
yourself with the modern day vet, and helping warriors transition, and myself, helping those that are down in the ditches or in the trenches, that just need a little hand up, you know what I mean? So so yeah, so that's where I'm at, and that's how my transition was. And I think that's why it was so smooth for me as well, was because I knew my whole life wasn't revolved around me being a hospital corpsman. A big major piece of that pie, absolutely a big major piece of that pie, but that's not the whole pie. You know what I mean? And I always kind of knew that. I prepared myself to get ready to retire. Um, I also got involved with, organizations outside the military to keep my mind busy with that camaraderie, VFWs. I'm a Freemason, so, I went back, did that. What else? And then just stayed involved and, for lack of a better phraseology, I should say, is and at the same time, it's kind of hard for me to say that I really left the Navy. Like I am still so
working.
involved. Yeah. I'm still so involved and so embedded with the Navy. I just get to grow out my hair and beard now, Um, and a matter of fact, hopefully in a couple of months, I'll have some great news, but might be going back to work as a GS in a very great position. And something I never thought I would ever say, because I was like, no, I'm never going to go. But hopefully, if it comes to fruition, the position will definitely allow me to give back to our corpsman community, especially with whatever's happening in the horizon. So, yeah, so we'll see.
That is awesome. We'll definitely talk that into positivity without a doubt. And thank you for sharing your mental health story, because that's really like the importance of my podcast and just people just understanding that suicide is very common in the military, very common. And they might think they're the only person that's having the suicidal thoughts because they don't want to be the black sheep of the command, but it's always important to come forward and ask for help. And thank you for sharing that. So if you want to talk about the stuff you're doing right now, we can hopefully put that out to the open as well. Not that I have a following yet, but I will.
Hey, we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit about your do you have a foundation or something?
Yeah. So, like I said, after my suicide attempt, I just openly started speaking about my mental health and my recovery and how I'm preparing for this fight. And so I initially started off with what was called Luis Fonseca No Shame, just me having no shame, talking about what I'm going through. After retirement, after me seeing the impact the last 4 years of my career, after retirement, I knew I wanted to do something with that. And bringing awareness has always been one of my top priorities. And so it started off that way, and we rebranded to call it No Shame Warrior Foundation. And so initially we start off kind of maybe like most foundations, we do a little podcasting, get the awareness out there, try to raise some funds for some scholarships, or some debt relief, so for some veterans that, might, come into a $500 car repair payment they can't pay out of pocket, try to cover little things like that. But in that, we weren't necessarily going to be a crisis outreach, but we ended up kind of turning into that, which is a great blessing in disguise. And this is the part that I get excited about. So, No Shame Warrior Foundation's main mission right now, and we've been tackling this now for about a year, is we like to consider ourselves not just a nonprofit that brings awareness, but we're a nonprofit that takes action. So we established what is called a high risk suicide intervention task force. So what that task force does is, and anyone honestly can be part of this task force. Yes, I do have key members that are my team leads, but anyone can be part of this task force, and it costs zero money. All I ask is to be part of this task force is, hey, while you're scrolling Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, prior Twitter, or whatever other social media, or you're in your emails or whatever, and you come across a post that says, that's it, I'm done, bye, I no longer want to be here, I want to kill myself, anything like that, and you want to find out the legitimacy of it, look up No Shame Warrior Foundation on that social media platform and send us that screenshot. Or you can just message us at warrior@noshamewarriorfoundation.org. And my team does the background investigation, see how legitimate it is to get authorities there in time before our veteran and or active duty counterpart succumbs to their self-inflicted wounds. As of today, we've been in operation, like I said, almost a year doing that. And yesterday we hit double digits and we found our 10th veteran that was in crisis, and we're able to get to him in time within less than an hour to get him help into the hospital. So yes, that is what No
That
Shame
is
Warrior Foundation does
amazing.
now.
That is good to know because
So-
I'm part of a few veteran groups on Facebook, and I have come across a few posts and I didn't know what to do with it. So that is very, very good to know.
Yeah. So that's why I say it costs nothing, and all it takes is a couple seconds of your time to screenshot it and send it over, and let us get to work. And we've been very fortunate. I know one day we have 100% success rate. I know one day will be the time that won't happen. But we don't dwell on that right now. And when that day happens, I know me and my team will stand strong, and we'll stop for a moment to send our condolences, but the mission keeps on going, right? So just glad to put a small little dent in this pandemic of suicide going on right now, and hopefully we can make a larger dent in the future, and hopefully one day we don't even really need our services anymore, But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Yeah. That's all I really got. I'm so happy. We have someone that's gonna interrogate you.
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you? This is Steve. I'm in the background.
I'm doing well, thank you. Good.
Yeah,
how's it going?
maybe some questions I would ask you, being from outside looking in, what were some of the hardest things that you had to deal with when you had to reintegrate and you had to come back? What were some of the difficulties that you had to go through when you came back and you had to, be a civilian again?
That's hard because, like I said, my transition was fairly smooth. But I think the one major thing that I think gets most of us veterans, and I saw this for a small part. I think that's why I'm so excited about this new possible job adventure that has come up, is because even though the last 3 years I've been retired, or 2.5 years, I've been doing school. I went to HVAC school. I went to welding school. I'm about to graduate electrical school because I thought I was going to get into the trades and do handyman work. And I do, and I enjoy it. But the body's beat up as well, too. And it's like, oh. Yes. And when this new job opportunity came up, and the excitement and everything, I found it. I think I found it again. Reiterated that we all just need a purpose, whatever that purpose is. And so the hardest part, I think, was really finding my purpose. Even though the nonprofit fulfills that greatly, there's still another piece. And so I think that was just the finding the purpose part.
I think a lot of us struggle with that. That was my biggest one too, of like getting out and saying, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm so sick of your shit. And then it's like, damn, I feel like I don't have a purpose anymore now that I'm out, and I'm trying to still find it now. So hopefully that is with helping veterans with their whole transition process.
Nice. And my last question would be, when you were going through, and thank you for sharing your story as well. But when you were going through those hard moments, what were some of the tools that you used to help you get out of that within your own in your own mind? Like, how were you able to get out of that?
Drinking, drugging, sexing, gambling.
Well, besides that,
and we laugh about it now, but honestly, for 17 years, and I hid it very well. I mean, I don't even think, Marie, you probably knew how bad it was when you knew me. because I was really good at hiding it. I really was. And on the exterior, I showed a very, what I thought was put together leader, sailor. But in the inside, it was all torn apart. It was all the pieces.
He was very put together.
And it wasn't. And so it wasn't until after my suicide attempt and I really started just using all the tools that I could get. And nowadays, one thing that helps me through all of this is, us as human beings, we think that magically we're this unique person I'm the only one that has dealt with this shit in between my head. No one else has, right? That's why we don't want to talk about it, because we think we're so special that out of 8 billion people that are on this planet, we're the only ones that have these thoughts, right? Or out of all the hundreds of billions of humans that have lived this earth, no one else has had these thoughts. We think that, right? I don't know why, but we do. But one of the greatest things that one of my Marine brothers told to me in the camera when I came out and let him know about my suicide attempt, which was shortly afterwards, he looked in the camera. This was about 20, 25 of us on Facebook video at that time. And he looked in the camera like that and he goes, Doc, he goes, let me ask you a question. I said, what's up, Matt? And he was with me in the Battle of Al-Naziriyah. He goes, did you fight in the Battle of Al-Naziriyah by yourself? I said, no. He goes, so why the fuck are you fighting this battle by yourself? And so now, man, like how I combat this is I build my battle team. We are not successful as human beings by ourselves. We have always succeeded as a team. Even me as a long distance runner, anything over a half or full marathon, I need a team with me to complete it. Even a full marathon, I need a team with me to complete it, to recover and all that. So nothing gets accomplished without a team, and just keeping that in my mindset that, hey, you have a lot of great family and friends to reach out to, and not being ashamed of what I'm dealing with at the moment, and picking up that phone and saying, today's not going to be a good day. And if you don't talk me down, like the liquor store is literally 5-minute drive from my house. That's how easy it is for me to get my preferred drug. You know what I mean? So so that's what I do nowadays to keep my brain and myself healthy, so I can, be ready for anything that comes my way.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in. There will be much more of this. I'll probably harass you more in a few weeks to do another podcast or something.
Let's do it.
That is it. You guys could like, subscribe, share this video with someone that you think that it could really benefit from this. Mental health is very, very important in the military, when you're transitioning, when you're a civilian life. It's always going to be important, and it needs to be your number one priority, not your chain of command, not what is chief going to say. Mental health is top priority, because if you're not functioning, the mission isn't going to get accomplished.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.